Uh, Good afternoon or good morning, folks. So, thanks for taking time here to attend this update that I have presented the last time around. Now, unfortunately, today I'm going to have to do this within the next 45 minutes. Now, leave a little bit time for Q&A. I do have a hard stop today due to another meeting. So, here's what I'd like to do. Today's topic is really sort of around the idea of scaling your business um, as your new business grows along with your product and your strategy. So the concept is really sort of share some of the learnings here that we've done here at Zoom. So I'm Nick Chong. I'm the head of global support and services here. I was the first executive that joined Zoom back in 2012 when the product was just rolled out. I was responsible at that time for the product marketing pieces, the support, and a bunch of the business developments around at that time, and was responsible to launch our product, our meetings products, as well as the our rooms products as well. So this is my that was my fourth startup at that point in time, and it was my first premium company when I started with them. And at the time, I have a lot more hair, as you can see. So one of the the challenges and the requirements for scaling any sort of business really lies down a couple of the problem statements and the root causes. Problem statement with scaling has always been sort of like, when do I scale? If you scale too early, you have an issue sort of related to your burning of your cash, your protection of your key assets. But if you scale too late, then you have the issue with your responsiveness to the market growth, the responsiveness to the market opportunity, and obviously, responsiveness to hiring, right? So the problem statement has always been there. But if you look at the real reasons for scaling, if you think about why people scale too early or too late, it's the root causes around that as well. It's the underlying facts that it's related to sort of how you project your business, right? A lot of times we have sort of our pros projections. We've got really optimistic view of things to come, a really optimistic view of sort of how we present the business case to our investors, and then obviously along the way, many unexpected events that can be happening there, product readiness, macro events, um, competitive events that can happen along the line. So the underlying factors is really sort of be able to understand where your projections are, your unexpected events as the root causes for the scaling planning that you want to do. So really be able to tie it into that. The next thing related to skilling is really sort of around the concept of, when do you scale with resources? How do you scale it and the dependencies around it? Generally, the root causes are related to sort of the lack of money, the talent acquisitions at that time, and the technologies to do that. Those are not easy problems to solve when you're trying to scale, but you really have to sort of make the balance between those three things. And then the next question that really pops out is around the concept of, where do I scale, right? You have your support, your sales, your marketing, your finance, your operations, your legal, and your HR, right? How and when do you scale those areas? So later on when I share, we'll talk about how Zoom did it, but generally there are these root causes of, if I scale in the wrong area, it becomes a problem. Then last but not least, to scale, is that on the product or the service, how do I find your beachhead customers and area to scale? The world of premium really lies down on a couple of concepts, right? The concept of, hey, let's say I have a product, I have a user. Simple, right? The strategy of premium is really, hey, if I have a product, they will spend. If I have their mind share, they will buy. With a freemium product, generally the idea is, if I have a tier of features, If I have a free feature, a paid feature, the customer will spend money on your paid feature. If I have a great freemium product, you gain their mind share with a tier support. Free users get free support, paid users get paid support. That's generally the strategy around sort of the premium world. What Zoom did was to sort of change the mindset. We say, hey, let's not do the tiered features and the tiered support for freemium. Let's change it and into a full-featured product. In addition of that, instead of focusing on just the product experience, let's focus on the customer experience. Let's make sure that it's focused around their success. They get full support, full featured. If we do that, we get the word of mouth and the happiness to that to allow to drive the freemium world rather than the traditional methods of tier featured and tier support. We give them full featured, full support, and drive word of mouth and happiness. So how do we do that? So we said, hey, you have full featured for all the things that we have. The limitations here is going to be around the fact that when you do one-to-one meetings, you get unlimited minutes meetings. When it's more than two, you get 40 minutes meeting. So the concept here really lies on the fact that, hey, you can experience the whole featured here from the product perspective, and most of the meetings will sort of end around 40 minutes anyway, and you can experience that with full-fledged. And we restrict that to 25 attendees, which is a lot at that point in time. We provide them with a variety of success tools from support to success, live video support, in-app feedback to allow them to really get feedback in as quickly as they come to sort of drive the innovations and the differentiations. Okay. So this was sort of how we came to the market and make that change, right? That is differentiated from how it was done in the past. So the product differentiation and the success differentiation really is different and unique at that point in time. It's all around full featured, just limiting minutes, and around full success tools, just in listening to feedback all the time. When there's a problem that comes, we do live in-video support. When there's an in-app feedback, they can give feedback on the fly. We respond. We want to be highly responsive to their requirements to help them scale. And the way we scaled at the time was really sort of driving the concept of engineering. We, the first thing we did when we see customers coming in, when the growth was coming, we scaled engineering. Then we scaled support, right? In making sure they were delivering happiness. Then we scale sales and marketing. A lot of companies tend to do the reverse. When they have a product, they will invest in sales and marketing first to drive the revenue. We did the reverse. We did engineering and support, then sales and marketing, then finance, then operations, HR, legal, and international. We thought this model of scaling really allow the product to be viral, be easy to support. Okay. So the strategy behind it really lies down on a couple of things in terms of business strategy. The internal strategy and an external strategy. The internal strategy is really driving on the fact that we can evaluate and plan. What is it internally that we can do? We want to drive along the resourcing strategy and constant continuous improvements internally. On the external side, we drove a strategy around increased visibility. We did billboards on highway. We did inside sales to drive lots of changes to bring customers in. We drive strategic business partners to sort of be the word of mouth and the partners to drive our rooms, our webinars product line, and our meeting product lines. Okay? So really, we got to think in terms of how you do internal and how you do external to really sort of drive that strategy. So that's in a shorter nutshell. Like I said, I have to condense this because of, I've got a really cut-off meeting here to get to, of how we sort of make the change to scale. The concept of switching the experience method, driving the experience from innovation, from product and success, scaling from engineering to support, and then making sure across the product, driving internal and external. Okay. Sorry, I just got an interruption here. Okay. So with that, I'd like to sort of open up questions. So do you guys have any sort of questions and things that you'd like to know in terms of how we've been sort of scaling our process here?
I'm sorry, Nick. This is Steve. It's it. Is this the presentation? Because it felt very short and very high level. I was thinking it would be a little bit more, in maybe some examples, some pitfalls, some things. I mean, some things you can share with us in terms of additional insights from success stories and critical pitfalls, maybe based on your experience having done this with other businesses?
Yeah, so yeah, so you're definitely right. So the idea behind, I mean, the things that we've done, right? I mean, like I said, the biggest pitfall that we've seen in scaling is really this area here where we've seen across the board. I mean, this is my fourth startup, right? So what I've seen in the past is, one of my startup didn't really quite make it. Um, they really scale really early in the process, right? Money came in, high projections. Um, you know, we're going to do 50 million of business in the first year. We had hire really quick hire in sales, in marketing to build into that, right? It was really scaling really early. And I say, and again, the root cause of that I've seen early on is really sort of this false projection. As a startup, if you said you can do 50 million in the first year, or even 20 million, you really have to question those numbers. How real are them, right? How feasible is it? With Zoom, we never did that, right? When we came in, we were very practical in terms of looking at the numbers, the customers coming in, projections that are very down to earth, and we, look at the product, look at the adoption, look at the user and the feedback before we scale. Right? That was one thing that I think we've learned really well in terms of understanding that, right? And then, as I mentioned earlier, right, a great pitfall is well sort of the resources. We didn't go raise that much money in the beginning. We had 3 million of seed money, and that was all we had, right? Previously, in other startups that we had 20 millions of funding. The other one had 30 millions. So money, to some degree, was double-edged. It helped, and um, it created another barrier, right? How do you spend the money, right? So to some degree, not having that really helped. We didn't have that. We were very tight on managing the talent that's coming in, uh, managing resources, managing the money, and getting the right technologies to do that. Okay. So I mean, this is sort of the things that I've learned from just experience of being in 4 startups and how we did it, right? At Zoom, we just didn't do that, right? And like I said, we then went to a freemium model, and how we did it with freemium was really sort of going into that, right? Does that sort of understand, all these 4 areas is the experience that I've really learned throughout that, right? And when do you scale? Like I said, most organizations from starting, they will go and invest in sales and in marketing, drive it, right? They never find a beachhead. They just find one customer here, another one there, build the product to support a lot of this here, a lot of this there. Really, the lack of focus around that really causes area to scale the wrong way. Right? Zoom we were much more disciplined to find these problems, scale accordingly into driving that. Steve, do you like more insight on the specific area?
I'm sorry, I was talking to my partner here. Yeah, that was good. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Nick.
yeah, yeah. I mean The second thing that I really want to drive to, from a high level, these are the things that we've learned and what we've gone through. But from a strategic perspective, right? I mean, you really have to think. The last slide is really sort of what we've gone through, right? You really have to have a really. I mean, people sort of mix and match, the strategies as you're starting out, right? You know, they really don't have a game plan between internal and external. They always thought, hey, you know, do the marketing, do the sales. To me, those are two distinct strategies you have to think in place, right? You really have to sort of think through what your internal plans are. I said at Zoom when we started, we will focus a lot more on the internal than it was about the external for at least the first 15 months was all around the internal things, doing it right, resourcing the internal right, improving the products, improving the success, improving the happiness. Then post the 15 months, we started to focus on the external. The experience that I've seen has always been a big reverse in strategies. The CEO that comes in, the sales that comes in, very focused on the external strategies and forgot the internal strategies. And that overlap all the 80-20 on external and the 10 on the internal really create a dichotomy as you scale, right? And I think at Zoom we sort of reversed it and did a lot more on the internal than the external, and it really sort of balanced it out, right? And of course, at the end of it, you have to have a good product, you have to have an experience that people like, you have to have good support, and you have a product that can scale and that can work along with it, right? So you have to have those. But just having a proper strategies around the internal and external to us was really key. And then, having a product that can sort of stand behind it as well. Anyone else has any experience, any questions that I can sort of guide along, give you some of the guidance that we've gone through as well? Happy to take any questions. Yeah. Well, you can't get quiet because otherwise, I'm not gonna be able to share a lot of the best practices here. Bring up some questions of challenges that you might have or things that you are going through.
So I'll ask again, Nick. So, one of the challenges I think that we're having as we scale up the business is, we have a business that's pretty mature in terms of revenue. We're bringing, I think, good revenue. It's a partnership right now of a couple of us, and one of the things that I'm struggling with right now is to scale is the balance between infusing more cash to scale by maybe outside investors or whichever, versus us continuing to self-fund our growth, which is slower, but of course we control it, right? And so, but there's that balance, right? And we've been at this for almost 3.5 years, 4 years now, and we've been successful. We have pretty decent cash, but at the end of the day, is like, okay, I'm not sure we're going at the speed that we need to go. It seems to be slow, so I was wondering, like, maybe from your perspective, what are some components or things that we need to start thinking about when you start thinking about moving from a bootstrap business startup that's been successful to a time to scale it up, time to maybe bring outside investors or maybe infuse more cash to it to do that, to invest in the infrastructure for growth and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are good questions. So let me tell you how, when we did, like I said, right, with the seed funding for 3 million, and then we went through the process, getting the product out, getting customers, we did not raise any money at that point. Now, our Series A come in, later, almost, that's it, almost 15 months later, then Series A comes, and when did we sort of go out and decided to raise money? I think there are three things you really have to sort of get to, right? For us, the most important piece is really sort of understanding that you have found, revenue from your beachhead customers that will grow with money coming in. For us, for example, when we started, universities was a sort of an early adopters. They have a requirement to do online classes. In the beginning, right? People can't really do video. They just do online, video. They had some products from Skype, from people, WebEx. I've got 2 or 3 videos, and everyone was just screen sharing, which was great. But when you're doing online class, you never know what they're doing. They're all could be doing something else, right? So without video, that connection wasn't there. So that was a true beachhead and a real problem, and customers are willing to pay, and that opportunity was big. It wasn't like one university, right? We started with Stanford, and then there was a lot more coming along, all wanting to replicate that, right? So I think the biggest thing for us at that point, we say, hey, listen, we know for sure we found a beachhead. It is a, customers are willing to pay, and there are lots of them that can be replicated very easily. Then when we go out to take money, we know that with the money coming in, if we invest in that, it will grow. It's not going in to find your beachhead, it's taking money in to grow your beachhead. Okay. So I think one area that you might want to ask is only sort of like, hey, the beachhead I have, is it good enough with the money that I can double, triple down and make it grow? If you're still looking for your beachhead and taking money in to look for your beachhead, that's okay. At least you know what your plans are, right? Then with the money, we know that we have found our first beachhead. We can take the next money and look for the second beachheads, right? So the money came in, we took that, we scaled the first beachhead from education. Then we then focused on the next, which was on a lot of the uh, uh, startups companies, earlier sort of SaaS companies that wanting a more robust tool. The traditional tools were costing anywhere from 5 to 8 times the cost of Zoom, and was very expensive. 8 years ago, there was a bunch of technology startup coming out. They want to be more efficient use of the technologies and a better cost point. So Zoom filled that role. Better product, better cost point, and gives them the ability to do more. So we started going after the SMB businesses as well, and there was a lot of them as a big business, and we could inject the money into it. So we knew from that point, right, injecting money into the education and the small business was, first of all, there's a pain point, there's a big market, and the injection of the money can fuel growth, right? If you feel like you can answer those 3 questions with the injection of the money, then I said take it, right? But if you're not so sure yet, then you have to figure out, you know, where your beachhead is. I would say that's the learning that I've done. The previous 2 companies I've had, 3 companies previously. First one, like I said, right, had the right idea, but money came in too much, and was invested everywhere and didn't have the discipline in managing that. The other 2 actually found a beachhead. It was a good beachhead, and it came in and it focused on the beachhead and it was growing. Incidentally, because of the growth, they were both acquired, right? So they were taken out through acquisition, which are great exit, by the way, by taken out, right? Again, they'll have a focus on the beachhead. Does it is it big enough, and can the injection of money fuel the growth?
That
Does that
makes
make sense?
sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is, I think that my takeaway is, look, if you identify a pain point in a particular in your industry or in your services or in your field that you're providing, um, and you can take advantage of that, then can you do it? Can you do it with your own cash or infusing your business into it, or do you need to infuse outside cash to take advantage and quickly solve for it? And is that what we're pretty much saying here?
Yeah. So, right. I mean, to my perspective, if you've sort of identified the beachhead, the segment, and people are buying it, like you say, you have revenue into it, and it's a big market, right? So if you take money in, you can fuel their growth, then take it, right? Because you're fueling, you're fueling the growth. But if you look at your beachhead and you're not so sure it's really growing yet, and then at that point, or if you take money in, if it's not going to fuel the growth, then what is your money for then, right? Is it to find another segment, another beachhead, right? You got to be able to sort of understand that plan there, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
If you don't find a beachhead yet, then my recommendation is wait, take your internal money, find the real beachhead, take the money in to fuel your growth. The risk of taking money in to find beachhead is sort of risky sometimes, right? Especially if it's a lot. If it's a little, it's okay. But if you take money in to fuel your growth, your scale, that is a great path.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I mean, have any questions? I mean, the other thing, right? The product, I can say more about the product itself, the product fit, product differentiation, and the product experience. Regardless of what you do, right? Product fit, product experience are very, very critical in the SaaS market dominantly, right? People tend to switch. If it's unique, it's great, but making sure it fits, making sure it's unique, and making sure that the experience is great. Get feedback all the time in your product. The customer can support feedback. In your support, take feedback. In your email, take feedback. Everything that we did, we always ask, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Get the feedback in to improve your product. Ultimately, your products is the root of the service, the SaaS service you're providing. Get that feedback early, consistent, constant, and leverage it. My CEO never ignore a feedback that comes in. Every feedback that comes in, he looks at it, reviews it, respond or ask me to figure out what to do and respond back as well. He never ignores a feedback that came in the early phases, every single one of them. I think that is a practice that is great, and we should all learn from that.
Well, can I ask another question? I think no one's asking, so I'll ask another one, man. Um, so Nick, what's been have you ever used the business model generation canvas for architecting and scaling your businesses in terms of redefining your value proposition as you go through different stages of growth?
Yeah, so Kevinizer is definitely one of those many ways of dealing them. I think it's definitely, uh, you know, one of the big model that's been around and people have used it. I have not personally used it, right? It sort of put things in place, put the cost and the resourcing and the planning all in place, so you have a view of what it is. I have not used it, so it's definitely a way to look at things. Um, there are folks that are a little bit more analytical than I am, and we do have business entities, finance, they're more into that sort of planning, which we do a lot more today than we did earlier. Um, I am a little bit of the, just me personally, I mean, I'm a little bit more of the uh, planner on focusing on customers and focusing on product, and I'm less structured. I think I would say that's how we did it. So as a startup, I mean, the organization we had was really small. Like I said, it was our first executive, Eric and I, and a few engineers that I put in place to sort of build that. And then we added a few sales folks and a few BD folks to grow it initially. So we didn't plan it as well. But I think Cavanizers are a good way to sort of look at, it gives you the structure of, resourcing, planning, customers, input channels, sales channels, cost, revenue. I mean, it gives you a lot of the things to put together and give you a point of view into planning on that. I think those are really good ways to look at things. I think those are good models. I think there are a couple of other similar models as well out there looking at those. I'm just personally not as structured.
Yeah. Yeah. What would be another model that you've seen out there that would be similar to that Canvas model?
Let me see if I have. Let's see.
Yeah, that's okay. If you don't have, if it doesn't come in mind right now, that's okay. But maybe, I'm just
Yeah, I don't
curious.
come.
That's
So
okay.
when we like my background has been with Cisco for a while. So this, the Cisco model has always been Geoffrey Moore, and that's how, we did a cross the chasm model and a lot of planning around how we structure and model that, the crossing the chasm model from Geoffrey Moore. So that's been the um, background and uh, 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 history that I've been using when I was at Cisco, and that's how I've learned sort of structure those models. So that's what I've been used to. But I know since then, right, I mean, that was some time when I started. Since then, there's been a lot of new models have evolved as well. So you guys can definitely check those out and figure out what those things are. But across the board, right, it's really sort of you know your product, your go-to-market strategy, and then sort of your growth, right? Those are sort of three areas that you have to think about in the models, and then various ways to do it. I'm just not as structured, but I've sort of learned those skills along the way through my experience and product and business uh, growth that I've been through the last. I've been with Cisco, then three startups, and then Zoom, which is my fourth.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, guys. I mean, I know this is a very quiet group. I'm not trying to, sort of drill you into all the slide decks here in terms of what it is. But if you guys have no question, I don't want to force you as well. I'm not. I'm definitely available to be reached out at any time you guys have questions. My email is nick.chong@zoom.us. Feel free to reach out. If I don't have the answers, I can connect you with someone at Zoom, give you some more structure around things, and sort of help you guys along the way if you have anything you need. Okay. My last advice is, it's a journey. Um, there are many ways to skin this journey business along the way, and you know, the success of skill from our perspective, what we've seen is, sort of really, plan down your beachhead like Jeffrey Moore has done. You know, inject the skill, and then plan ahead. Be very forethought around things. That's one thing I think our CEO and the team as well is we really forethought and making the bet, when to double down, when to pull back, uh, um, figuring out you know when to invest in a very strategic manner, and when to pull in and when to scale, right? And take the bet when you have to, but be really cognizant of things around it, but not be too aggressive, I would say. That's how we've done it, right? Zuba has been very lucky. I mean, we have a great product, great customers that love and like us. We've got very high adoption in the early phases, and then we've now been able to be in a place where we can help. As you know, with the premise of the COVID-19, we've sort of become a platform to help in universities, in hospitals, in essential services, in court cases, in remote businesses, in online businesses. We've had the opportunity now to be the platform to help and serve these companies, and making sure that our service is up all the time. We are secure. We have security features. We make it flexible and easy plans for all facets of users, to make sure that we can be um, be of service in this sort of COVID-19 period. So we didn't foresee that as much as we like to be, but we make sure every step that we make to scale to do that. So a good example of the scaling right now, I mean, if you guys have seen when the COVID-19 sort of things happened in February or so, Zoom was the only service in many regions that was left working with no impact to the service. Most of our competition had issues with performance, with scaling. Zoom stayed afloat, making sure all the users, new users, hundreds of millions of them, new participants, hundreds of millions of them is coming on, be able to use the platform. So we skill engineering really quickly with our architecture in place. Like I said earlier, right? Focusing on the scaling of engineering to make that happen. We skill our self-service for sales, for support, to make sure everything that's coming in is being taken care of. We did have some challenges with support, to be honest, because of the volume of users and the volume of participants, the volume of tickets, but we continue to add automations, add uh, agents as self-service to scale that really, really rapidly for service and support, which is my challenge right now to deal with that. And I've got a process and a strategy in place to really scale that in this amount of time to address that, right? And then continuously, we want to continue to add more product so that when the customers comes along, how do they scale to the next level with phones, with chats, with online, and all the experiences that they need to do to get to that level, right? So it hasn't been easy, right? I mean, I think you have seen the initial scaling from a startup to a business, and now from a business to a product, a platform of uh, of default platform for COVID-19. That scaling itself is a brand new challenge, and we're learning to do it. And I think so far we've been able to adapt to it and make those rapid changes very, very quickly. So I hope you guys all have the success, and I wish you all the best in scaling from your startup to a business, and then from a business to be a platform of choice for your customers, right? Learning how to sort of cope with that along the way. Thanks again. We're here, we're available to help, and Zoom as usual. We've got domain experts that I can bring on to help you all. With that, I'd like to thank you since there are no more questions.